He stood at the edge of the cottonwood grove, a giant of a man with shoulders broad as barn doors and a shadow that stretched long across the dusty Texas earth. Folks called him Eli Boone, though most just said, the giant cowboy, because once you saw him, the name fit too well to argue with. His boots were worn smooth from years of ranch work, and his hat had faded from sun and rain. He didn't speak much, but when he did, people listened. She came barefoot down the road at dusk, the dust soft beneath her feet. Her name was Clara May, and she had learned early how quiet hunger could be, how it gnawed without making a sound. She carried everything she owned in a cloth bundle slung over her shoulder. The hem of her dress was frayed, but her back was straight. She had the kind of strength that comes from surviving, not from comfort. They noticed each other at the same time. Eli had been watching the horizon, thinking about fences that needed mending and cattle that needed moving before winter. Clara was watching for any sign of trouble, because trouble had a way of finding her. When their eyes met, neither looked away. "You're a long way from town," Eli said, his voice low, steady, like the rumble before rain. "So are you," she replied. There was no challenge in her tone, just truth. He nodded. "Road doesn't give much mercy to folks without shoes." She smiled faintly. "Neither do towns." That made him pause. Eli had seen enough hardship to recognize it in others. He gestured toward the ranch road that curved behind him. "You hungry?" She hesitated only a second before answering. Yes, that was how it began. Not with promises, but with a simple meal. Beans simmered over a fire, cornbread warm from the skillet. Clara ate slowly, carefully, like someone who knew the value of not rushing comfort. Eli watched the fire, listening to the crackle of wood and the distant lowing of cattle. "You got a place to go?" he asked. She shook her head. "Not one that wants me." Eli stared into the flames. The ranch had been too quiet since his parents passed, the house echoing with absence. He worked from dawn to dark, slept hard, and woke alone. He'd never thought himself lonely, but watching Clara sit there, barefoot and tired, something shifted inside him. "I could use help," he said finally. "Ranch is big, work is honest, pay's fair." She met his eyes. "And what do you want in return?" The question surprised him. He wasn't offended, just thoughtful. "I want this land to mean something," he said. "I want a family to leave it to." The words hung in the air, heavier than he intended. Clara studied him, searching for lies. She found none, only a kind of blunt honesty that didn't try to impress. They walked up to the house together. He gave her a pair of old boots that belonged to his mother, polished and kept for reasons he couldn't explain until now. Clara slipped them on like they were made for her. Days turned into weeks. Clara worked hard, learning the rhythms of the ranch. She fixed fences, cooked meals, and laughed more than she had in years. Eli watched her grow stronger, not just in body but in spirit. The land seemed to respond to her presence, grass greener, mornings brighter. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in gold, Eli spoke the words that would change everything. "You'll give me 5 strong sons and never struggle again," he said, not as a demand, but as a vow. "This land will feed you. I will protect you, and together, we'll build something that lasts." Clara didn't answer right away. She looked out over the fields, the fences stretching far, the cattle moving slow and steady. She thought about nights spent cold and alone, about doors closed to her, about the quiet fear of never belonging anywhere. "Why me?" she asked, softly. Eli removed his hat, turning it in his hands. "Because you're strong," he said. "Because you walk barefoot and don't complain. Because you see the world clear-eyed. And because I'd rather build a life with you than spend another year talking only to cattle." She laughed then, a sound like water over stone. "That might be the strangest proposal I've ever heard. Not the smoothest," he admitted. "But it's true." Clara took a long breath. She understood what he was offering, not just security, but partnership. Hard days would still come. Storms would still break fences. But she wouldn't face them alone. "I don't promise easy," she said. "And I don't promise perfect." Eli nodded. "I don't want either." They married under the cottonwoods, with neighbors gathered and the wind carrying the scent of earth and grass. Clara wore a simple dress, and Eli stood taller than ever, pride softening his rugged face. There was no grand ceremony, just vows spoken plain and true. Life on the ranch was demanding, but full. Clara learned to ride, to manage accounts, to make the house a place of warmth. Eli learned to laugh more, to listen, to share burdens instead of carrying them alone. Seasons passed, and the ranch thrived. Children came, one after another, each with Eli's strength and Clara's resilience. They were raised with muddy boots and open skies, taught the value of work and kindness. The promise Eli had made became a living truth, not just in sons, but in a family bound by trust. At night, Clara would sit on the porch, watching her children sleep, feeling the weight of the day settle into peace. Eli would join her, his presence solid and reassuring. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked once. He smiled, taking her hand. Not for a single breath. The barefoot girl who once walked a dusty road had found more than a home. She had found a future built on shared strength, honest promises, and a love as wide and enduring as the land itself.